Welcome, everyone. So glad you joined us today. We're going to have a very unique webinar today that involves a number of our students to talk about graduate school, what it's like for them to undertake classes and balance life in the meantime. So we're going to get started. We've got a number of other webinars coming up later to talk about admissions and career services, but I know this is one of the most important ones that students really like to come back to later, even when it's just on video. So let me get started with a little bit of a review on what our agenda today. So this is about the student life and the experiences. Our students are going to go in a number of different slides that are going to have some topics on them. And they will just cover that topic until we figure we're ready to go to the next slide. So one of those will be adjusting to grad school and what that took for them, the curriculum and the customization of courses. We've got people from both the Master of Public Service and the Master of International Affairs, so they can talk about their tracks and concentrations, and maybe they're even mixing some classes elsewhere at Texas A&M or through the other program. A little bit about the capstone projects and what they may be undertaking, student resources and the support that we have, and maybe how they got their internships, maybe what they're doing right now to land that job when they graduate. The opportunities for involvement here in the student groups and with tailgating and all the fun activities we have here to balance that academic rigor. And then living in Bryan College Station, and maybe even some advice at the end, what I wish I knew before. Here's something, tips and tricks. If I had known this before I came in, maybe I wouldn't have suffered for a month or two in adjusting. So basically, we're going to start with these things and then ask what's on your mind. And at that time, I'll turn off the recording and then you can unmute and talk or drop something in the chat. So I'm going to start with letting our presenters unmute. You're welcome to put your video on if you want, and we'll just go in the order. So if you see your name, just unmute and talk. So I'm going to start with Natalie, and we'll work our way through, but we do have 6 students on here for us. And then again, those attending, just drop your chat questions in, and I will, at some point, try to get Natalie to cover that with us. So Natalie, it's yours.
Alrighty, howdy y'all. My name is Natalie Cook. I am the graduate assistant for admissions and recruitment, and I'm a Master of International Affairs student here. I'm from Fredericksburg, Texas, and for my undergraduate degree, I went to the University of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. I'm here studying international development and economic policy, and my specific concentrations are foreign economic policy, Latin America, and analytic methods. I will say that these have sort of shifted around and changed since I applied. But that's what I'm working towards right now.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Katrina Mulheron. I'm an IA student here on the National Security and Diplomacy track. My concentrations are women, peace and security, conflict and development, and diplomacy. I'm involved with the Bush School Ambassadors Council and the Public Service Organization, so I'm happy to answer any questions about those also.
Hi, all. My name is Ryan Neville. I'm an MIA student here. I am studying U.S. defense policy, and I also did a custom concentration that combines both China and a little bit of the European courses. My time in Bush School, I'm involved in the Center of Grand Strategy, also the Ready Room as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask about those.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hayden Crawford. I'm an MPSA student focusing in public policy analysis, as well as Homeland Security and National Defense. I did my undergraduate at Texas Tech University. And as far as student involvement, I'm involved in the Student Government Association. I'm chair of the Tailgate and Traditions Committee. And last year I was involved in the muster committee on main campus. So if you have any questions about main campus student involvement, feel free to ask.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Lily Frosch. I'm actually from North Carolina, but attended Texas A&M for undergrad as well. Whoop. I'm also an MIA student, and I am on the National Security and Diplomacy track, concentrating in intelligence, cyber, and then women, peace, and security. And on campus life, I'm involved in the Bush School Ambassadors Council, and then in SGA, I'm the social chair. So happy to talk about both of those.
Hi, I'm Lauren Walters. I'm from Oklahoma. I did my undergrad at BYU. I'm on the MPSA track. My concentrations are women, peace, and security, and I'm doing public policy analysis.
Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and start off our discussion with adjusting to grad school, sort of what that looked like, graduate school versus undergraduate. And if any of y'all want to jump in and address any of these topics, I'm hoping we can talk about what your week looks like, what your homework looks like, what it's like to work with the faculty, and then sort of any time management, professional mentality tips that y'all have. So do you have anyone that wants to immediately jump in and address any of these?
I'll go ahead and start off. One of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten is to treat grad school like a 9 to 5 job, so that you're doing schoolwork during the day and getting everything you need to get done during like a work period, so you kind of adjust to internship and then professional life after grad school. Then your evenings can be filled with student activities like intramurals or just, taking time to yourself to get personal things taken care of.
All right. Do we have anyone who wants to talk about faculty expectations, what it's like to work with our mix of practitioner and academic faculty?
Yeah, I guess I can cover that a little bit. Over the course of my time at Bush School, I've gotten really close with a lot of the faculty, especially my advisor, Professor Castillo. They have really high expectations. They do expect a lot out of you. Some of these classes can be a lot of work, but they're definitely worth it. And when you put the work in, the professors are going to notice that. They're going to give it back to you too as well. They're going to help you out. They're going to give you advice. They're going to guide you through, what you need to do. And the relationship between both the practitioners and the academics is actually pretty unique to look at. They all really get along. They're all really easy to talk to. Like, I've never taken a class with Professor Vogel, but he knows who I am. I know who he is. So all these professors are here. They're here to help us out. They're here to help you figure out where you're going in life. So really thankful for that.
Alrighty. Does anyone else have any sort of hot tips or advice, maybe anecdotes about adjusting to grad school?
I can kind of touch on the homework load and time management. So a big difference between grad school and undergrad is it's a lot more individual learning and lots of reading, not necessarily homework assignments where you're turning something in every week, just a lot more reading and papers here and there. So with that, it is a lot about time management. I think the great advice Hayden mentioned earlier is treating it like a 9 to 5 job. That said, a lot of your classes, most of them just meet once a week. So you do have a few days a week where you can maybe work a part-time job if you need that to get through grad school, still participate in a lot of social activities. So there's definitely ways to have both work-life balance.
Alrighty. Anyone else on this one, or are we ready to go on to the next slide? Okie dokie. So I was hoping maybe one of our MPSA participants could walk us through. I have the most current updated tracks and concentrations, and maybe point out which ones you're in, or if you've got a legacy concentration, telling us about that.
Okay, so I'm on the public policy analysis track, and then I'm also doing a concentration in Homeland Security and National Defense. The other 2 tracks are just as fine as well, but policy analysis is really good for me because that's kind of what I want to do in my professional life. And then Homeland Security and National Defense is a topic I'm interested in, so having the ability to concentrate in that and take classes that are tailored to that sort of mentality are really positive as well.
Yeah, like Hayden, I'm also on the public policy analysis track. It has been really good because I'm interested in doing analysis or being like a legislative assistant in Congress. So we've had a lot of really good classes that covered that. It is a lot more math intensive than I thought it would be. We have to take Quant 1 and Quant 2 and public finance, so a lot more math than I was hoping for. But that has really helped me with my analysis skills. For my concentration, I'm actually doing the Women, Peace, and Security, which is an IA concentration, but the Bush School lets you go back and forth kind of between MPSA and MIA, which is awesome. And I know that Kat and Lily are also in the Women, Peace, and Security concentration and could talk more about that.
Hey guys, before we go to something else, can you talk about something about the classes and what's required of you? And Lauren, I know you just mentioned about doing the math and the quant work, but maybe if quant isn't your thing, how have those students in those classes gotten together to help push those students through as they need, right? And maybe some of the assignments for certain classes, maybe you can hit on, especially the core courses that everyone has to take. Do you remember that far back of what that entailed? Either you, Hayden, both you and Lauren can talk about for a few minutes.
Honestly, what I would recommend, so the first semester is pretty difficult. It's a lot of work. And it's kind of also tough to adjust transitioning from the undergrad mentality to the graduate school mentality. But the best thing that I did that helped me out the most was create a study group of just me and my friends. I mean, we get together almost every day of the week and we'd knock out assignments and really just make sure we were hitting those topics that need to be learned so we were prepared for the tests and just prepared for class in general. So just make sure you have a good study group that you get along with. I think is the best thing you can do to kind of handle those classes and the homework loads associated with them.
Yeah, just touching on what Hayden said, I believe it was during the first week of classes, they mentioned that it'd be really good to get a study group together. And that was what carried me through my first year during econ and quant and all of those really hard classes, having really good study groups who could meet together and we could help explain concepts to each other, keep each other on track for homework, study for exams. So they really emphasize kind of teamwork in the Bush School. And I definitely think that those groups help you through those difficult classes.
Yeah, and then one more thing to hit on that I forgot about. The professors also offer office hours. I would very much advise you to take advantage of those because you can go in there and ask them pretty much anything you want. And so if there's concepts that you're just really not clear about, or if there's questions about the homework that you don't really understand, really take advantage of those office hours and make sure you're in contact with your professors as much as you can be.
Alrighty, and then I think I'll sort of start speaking to something that I think is applicable across both MPSA and MIA, which is that you'll have a certain set of core courses that most students are going to take care of in their first year, if not their first semester. And so the advantage to that is you and all of your buddies that come in the first year will be going through more or less the exact same thing together. And then it's really in the second semester of your first year and in your second year that you'll start to specialize and concentrate more. And so moving over to the IA tracks and concentrations, we have it divided by national security and diplomacy and international development and economic policy. So I come from the international development and economic policy track. This one is much more heavily focused on economics, trade. I studied economics in undergrad, and so it was sort of a natural shoe-in for me. We also have some tracks or some concentrations that are sort of cross-listed between the two of them. And so if you find yourself somewhere between security and diplomacy and economic policy and development, a lot of students will take a concentration from some of those cross-listed ones. So like I said, I'm in international development and economic policy, and I also have a regional concentration in Latin America, which is not something that I originally came in with, but I sort of discovered my interest in during my first year at the Bush School. And maybe I'll let one of our other MIA students talk through where their sort of tracks and concentrations fall within this.
Sure, I can jump in here. So as you mentioned, Natalie, I'm sort of that unique case that kind of falls in between both of the different concentrations. So formally, I'm on the national security and diplomacy track because I came in really interested in foreign affairs and diplomacy. However, during my time at Bush School, I really developed an interest and passion for international development. And so that led me to cross-list and focus on conflict and development, and then the women, peace, and security concentration, which counts for both. And I think one of the big benefits about the Bush School is that you don't necessarily need to know 100% what you want to focus on and what you want to pursue professionally coming in here. There's a lot of room for growth and academic exploration. And so you really do have the flexibility to explore a lot of your different interests.
Lily, I think we've lost your audio, or at least it's not coming from.
Yeah, I can't hear it either. I still don't hear you.
Okay, someone else.
Now I do. I don't.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, cool.
There you are.
So we are revamping our cybersecurity policy concentration. And just to kind of touch on, if you've taken classes that you think maybe this would fit into this concentration, you do have the opportunity to meet with whoever the head of that concentration is, whatever professor, and kind of discuss with them, do you think this would fit in? And they can make the call. So in a way, you can kind of play with these concentrations and just take whatever you want, because at the end of the day, this is your degree.
All right, and then Ryan, I don't know if you want to maybe jump in and talk about what it was like to create a custom concentration, what that process looks like, and how you ended up deciding on that.
Yeah, so the process, there's a form you had to print out. You put the classes that you want on the custom concentration. You got to give it a name, and it has to make sense too, right? So my custom concentration I titled Great Power Conflicts. So naturally that kind of moves towards pulling classes from the regional studies, specifically the China concentration, or I guess what's now the China Indo-Pacific concentration, and the Europe concentration, while also touching on a little bit of grant strategy as well. So I have a little bit of all three of those concentrations into one. To me, that was really awesome because it allowed me to be really flexible with it. I can really focus on what I wanted to really focus on, instead of just focusing on like domestic politics of like a certain country. I can focus on just their foreign policy and like the foreign policy of another country and mix that in with the grant strategy aspect. So for me, that was really huge. I really enjoyed getting to do that.
I will say there's also the opportunity to pull in classes from main campus. And so for me, for example, I was interested in a methods concentration, and the Bush School doesn't do a whole lot of econometrics or statistics classes beyond Quant 1 and 2 in-house. And so I've gone over to main campus to take sort of some upper level statistics classes. I'm really like the black sheep. No other Bush student ever wants to do this. But there are also some of my friends are interested in GIS, for example, and have gone over to main campus to take some GIS classes. And so if you're looking to build something that you think is Bush related, but maybe requires some classes that aren't offered within the Bush School, there's also an opportunity to customize things that way. Alrighty, and then we can move into Capstone. So Capstone is a project that you will work on in your second year. For the MPSA students, they work on it for a full year. And for the MIA students, it's a 1 semester long project. Before it's time for your capstone to happen, you'll get a list of the options. They're all sponsored by a faculty member, and usually there's about 7 to 10 of them. What you'll do is you'll rank order the top 3 that you would prefer to participate in, and then you'll receive an assignment and you'll serve on this capstone with 4 to 12 of your classmates. So it's a group work, group project. Like I said, you'll have a faculty sponsor that is going to provide guidance, and the goal of this is to produce both a written report and an oral presentation for a client. A lot of the clients will mirror the sectors that our internship and employment lists look like. So you'll see federal agencies, state and local agencies, nonprofits, and private industry. So a lot of us IAs have not yet started our capstone. I believe there's one that's going during this fall semester, but the majority will start in the spring. But the MPSA students will have already started and gotten going on their capstone. So maybe if they want to jump in and talk about what your experience has been like so far.
So Lauren and I, we have a little bit of a different capstone. We're in the DC capstone, which is going to be in the spring semester. So as far as fall semester goes, we've met a couple times. We've discussed what the process is going to look like in terms of moving to DC, working with DHS and some of the operation centers within the DHS or DC area. But just from what I've heard from the other capstones, they meet a couple times a week. They meet as a whole. So all the capstones meet together and they discuss writing techniques, organizational strategies, team culture, that kind of thing. And then when they meet individually, they work on whatever their client asks them to meet to work on. So for example, one of the capstones is working with the A&M Forest Service to discuss wildfire mitigation strategies in terms of policy. Another group is working with the community on the border to come up with a communication strategy for emergency management. So it just kind of depends. The clients vary from year to year, and sometimes they're extensions of a previous project. But also next year, they'll offer an Austin capstone for MPSA students, and they'll work in correlation with the Texas legislature because the legislature will be in session next spring. So it just varies from year to year in terms of what clients want and what the projects that are offered are.
Alrighty, and then I don't know if Kat, Ryan, or Lily, if y'all have heard anything about the capstone offerings for us coming up this next semester. I don't know if any of y'all want to jump in and talk about that.
Well, so ironic enough, one of my roommates is currently in a capstone, in one of the fall capstones. His experience with it, he's really enjoyed it. It's been a great opportunity for him to really figure out where he wants to go in his future. I believe his capstone is with Sandia, I want to say, and it's with Professor Weary. Trying to think what else in regards to that. What has he said about it? I know there's also another capstone right now that's actually about to leave next week for Latvia. And I believe I want to say that's Thornton's. From what I've heard next year, I was actually asking Professor Weary this morning, she's going to be doing another one. I know Castillo always does one. His are usually with one of the labs. But excited to see what the options are and, get to pick that out.
It's good that you mentioned. It is nice sometimes with these, there's a travel element, and so it can be within the US or even abroad that students will go to meet with their client and present. And so we've had students travel all over. I remember there was a trip last year to Greece, like you say, to Latvia. So that's an exciting thing. And the other massive bonus to the capstones is that it allows you to have a piece of experience with a real world client that you can demonstrate when you are working on applying to jobs. And so it's very practical application of the things that you've learned in the Bush School. And at the end of it, you will have something to show for it that I think a lot of students have had a lot of success with when they're interviewing and looking at different jobs.
And also there was a
Natalie,
question.
I saw a question about how those trips are funded. I don't know. I think on my end, my general response to this is that the faculty are receiving some funds through their accounts that they then decide how many students they can fund for that trip. So for instance, if a student group is going to Latvia, it may not be everyone in that capstone. It may only be a smaller portion of it. That all depends on how much funding they receive. So that's going to differ between programs and, again, the destination point for that. Unless anyone else has any other input for that. I think that's just the general answer.
Well, for the DC capstone in particular, and I'm sure this is the same for the Austin capstone, we're receiving a housing stipend because obviously we're going to have to move up there. So that's going to be part of it. And I know I haven't looked too much into this, but we received an email yesterday about business expenses for taking trips around the DC area. So some of those things will be funded by the school. And then the housing stipend, of course, helps kind of cover the cost of living and moving to DC.
Yeah, from my understanding, the capstones are generally covered by Bush. I'm pretty sure everybody on the Latvia trip is going to Latvia. I know last semester I think everybody in Castillo's capstone went to the lab wherever his capstone was. So generally, Bush does a pretty good job of covering the cost.
I think in the past, what I'm probably referencing was when there were multiple trips going and maybe that funding had to be spread out for 3 or 4 different capstones traveling to Mexico and Europe and what have you. So I bet right now when there's fewer trips, that's great to hear that they're covering everybody for that.
Alrighty, so next we're going to move over to student resources. I've got a little list here, and I was hoping that y'all could just sort of jump in and call out any of these that you've maybe interacted with, what's been helpful, what's been memorable, and how these have sort of enriched your time at the Bush School.
I can start with the language tutoring that we offer. So if you are on the MIA side, you do have to test out of an OPI test for whatever language you select. The Bush School is really good about setting up groups for this studying for the whatever language you have. Also, there are resources on main campus like the LSO office that you can take advantage of too.
I can jump in next and just speak to the networking with alumni and guests and the speakers and conferences. I would definitely say that these 2 things are really big benefits of the Bush School. We have such amazing different leaders who come in to speak and give presentations here. And especially as a Bush School ambassador, I get to interact with them outside of the formal presentation on more of a direct one-on-one level. So that's been a great learning benefit, as well as just opportunity to network. I know that like an informal tradition, but one that everyone follows here is just dressing professionally to class. We usually dress in at least business casual. And it's because of that reason. Like we always say, you never know who might walk in the door. And that's definitely true.
I can kind of speak to the writing program a little bit. I know a few of us in this webinar took the writing class. It was a good class. We learned a lot about just writing structure for different areas of government, like memos and policy briefs and whatnot. But they also offer just workshops. So if you're not able to take the class itself, if you just don't have time in your schedule, you're working or whatever, you can take the workshops. They're offered throughout the semester. You can also go to the Writing Center at any time to have a consulting appointment with one of the very capable writing instructors here at the Bush School.
Alrighty, thanks y'all. So next up, I'm hoping we can talk about internships and career services. I'll start off by saying, as a Bush School student, you are required to hold a professional internship between your first and second year. There's a little caveat: the Masters of International Affairs students, because we're required to pass a language exam. If you would like to do a language immersion and to really get caught up on a language, you can also choose that option. Our internships can either be domestic or internationally based. And the wonderful thing about them is because they're a requirement for your degree, Bush School will help fund an internship if it's unpaid. So there's 4 little career workshops in the fall, and as long as you attend all 4 of those and then submit some paperwork, Bush School is willing to help you out to fund an unpaid internship. But this really opens up the opportunity to take positions that maybe you wouldn't be able to otherwise. And then we've got career advising and assistance. We have full-time staff here just within the Bush School, separate from main campus, that work to help us get into internships and get into careers. They're very successful, so we have quite high employment rates within 6 months of graduation. And students go all over. People will go into all levels of government, nonprofits. Lots of students will work for government contractors. We have some that go into the private sector, some that elect to continue their education. And so I think we can just go around and let everyone talk about what your experience has been with working with career services and what sort of internship or language immersion you did over the summer. And then if you have any advice to slip in as well, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll start us off. This summer, I interned on Capitol Hill for Congressman Ronnie Jackson. Lived in DC, and before I did the internship, I visited the career services and I had them look at my resume. My resume was not very good, so they told me basically to destroy it and start over, which was something I needed to hear. So I redid my resume and I contacted some people that I knew and was able to get the internship, which was really great. In terms of advice, talk to other people who are also looking for internships. They may be able to connect you with somebody that they're not looking to do. And then talk to the second years as well and ask them what they did and kind of find out the path they took to get to the internship that they did during the summer.
I can go next. So this summer, I interned in Washington, D.C. with the U.S. Agency for International Development, and I worked in the administrator's office with their Action Alliance for Preventing Sexual Misconduct. It was a great opportunity, and in order to prepare for that, I just applied on USA Jobs, but I did meet with the Career Center, and they helped me put together a formal federal resume, so that was a big help. I also went to a lot of the employer presentations in the fall of my first year to learn about different opportunities, and definitely applied to a lot of those that I learned about. And then another thing I participated in was A&M's public policy internship program, which is housed in the School of Ag, but it's open to all students, both undergrad and graduate students. And that was a big benefit because they provided housing in DC, as well as other professional networking opportunities.
So I guess I'll go next here. I did a route different than most. I did the language immersion. So I actually lived in Spain for 6 weeks in Malaga, which is on the southern coast. I spent 4 to 5 hours a day going to Spanish class, lived with a Spanish family that did not speak any English. I learned the words for dinner really quick. But that was a great experience. If anybody has any questions that, feel free to ask. I'm more than willing to answer those. So.
All right. So for my internship, I actually went kind of a different route because I had a job my first semester and I'm still working there, but I have a work study position with United Way of the Brazos Valley. So I used my job to fulfill the internship requirement. So I didn't have a formal internship this summer, but I was able to get that experience another way, which is also a great option. So if you come into the MPSA or MIA program and you've worked previously or had a career, then you can sometimes get that requirement waived. And I worked with Michael Cochran a lot. He's the career advisor in the MPSA side. I'm not sure if he works with MIA students as well, but he is awesome at what he does and is really good at helping people find internships and get employment after they graduate.
So for my internship, I was at NORAD in North Carolina this summer, and I actually was able to find out about this internship through the employer presentations that Bush School is really good about putting on. What's also amazing is that a lot of times you'll meet second years that had an internship at the employees that are coming to the Bush School, so you can usually talk to them about what the application process is like, how their interviews went, and things of that nature.
Alrighty, and then I'll wrap us up. I also was up in DC this summer, which I have to say is really fun. There's usually a pretty big group of Bush students up there, and it was awesome to meet up with people, figure out how their internships were going. It was cool to have a sort of built-in network. I was with a private company that has clients including US government, foreign governments, that collects international survey research, and I was on their Latin America team. And so I got to do a lot of speaking in Spanish, a lot of coding, a lot of data analysis to facilitate getting public opinion data out of Latin America. And I will say the career services staff here is wonderful. It's awesome that we have them dedicated just to us as Bush students. They do a lot of work to keep up relations with employers that previous Bush students have gone to and also build new relationships. They bring in almost every single week, there's multiple presentations of different organizations or government entities or businesses that want to come and talk to us, tell us about their opportunities. And they maintain a really robust database of different alumni. And so a lot of the time, if you're looking at a position that you're interested in, they can connect you up with a former Bush student that has forged that path before you. So. Alrighty, next up, we're going to talk about student groups. So a lot of y'all, when you introduced yourself, mentioned what you're involved with. If you just want to sort of, you could briefly call those out again, talk about what it's like to do this, how it sort of helps you be involved beyond just classes and degree requirements. Yeah, and I'll just open it up, whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, so I'm the chair of the Tailgate and Traditions Committee, which is a committee within the Student Government Association, or SGA. Part of my job is to help run the Bush School tailgates, which we do for home games during the football season. Great way to kind of see people at a more professional setting and kind of relax and just have a good time on a good old game day here in College Station. And on top of that, last year, I wasn't able to do it this year because I'll be in DC in the spring, but last year I was on the muster committee, which is a tradition here at Texas A&M where we honor all the Aggies that have passed away within the last year. The one here in College Station is sort of the main one, but they have them all over the country and all over the world. My job on there was to help select the muster speaker. It's a great opportunity. It was great to be on main campus a little bit and kind of see what life is like outside of the Bush School and outside of West Campus, especially considering that I didn't go here for undergrad. So there's lots of ways to get involved, and they don't have to necessarily be at the Bush School.
On the SJ side of things, I'm the social chair, so a big part of that is just planning socials for Bush School students. Everyone can attend, which is a really great opportunity. We usually do free events like dancing at a local two-stepping bar. And then I'm also a part of the Bush School Ambassadors Council, and my position there is communications chair. That's been a lot of fun. It's running the Instagram and then creating merchandise like t-shirts and sweatshirts for all Bush School students. With both of these organizations, there's lots of ways to get involved depending on your interests, and there's lots of ways to meet other Bushies outside of your typical classes.
So I can speak a bit about PSO. So PSO is great because there's a lot of different community organizations that we work with within it. We're basically like the main community service volunteering group of the Bush School. So I'm the team lead for the Read by Third organization, which is a local nonprofit in Bryan that helps kids learn how to read by third grade by working with the parents to support them. And so about once a month, we'll go to the local elementary school and plan fun activities for the kids while their parents are in different workshops. So it's a great opportunity to give back to the community and develop connections as well.
So I can speak on the Ready Room. The Ready Room is a collection of the students here at Bush. Mainly designed for the Intel people, but it's open to everybody within the Bush School. It's designed as a way to help get people's writings out there. So the online platform, you can submit like an article you've written to it. We'll edit through it and we'll actually publish it on our website. Generally, the articles deal with Intel, but right now, the recent set of articles have all had to do with the Indo-Pacific. We also have a podcast as well. I'm actually a part of that. And so the podcast, we will bring on Intel professionals to talk about their experiences within the IC. We're also looking to expand that to cover, other government aspects. Yeah, also, I'm also part of the intramurals here as well. Play on a lot of those teams. That's a lot of fun. You'll also notice that picture is the intramural softball team that plays against LBJ from that school down in Austin. That's a very competitive softball game. Yeah, I see Hayden shaking his head too. It's a very competitive softball game. We beat them last year. We beat them pretty good. And so that's a lot of fun. I know Catherine loves talking about that as well. So.
One more thing to add, the two middle ones there, the International City Management Association and the Association of Fundraising Professionals, those are more geared towards MPSA students. Of course, they're open to anybody, but if you're interested in city management, I know a lot of people on the public management track for MPSA, that's kind of the route they want to go. Then if you're interested in fundraising, that's geared towards like the nonprofit track for MPSA. They do a lot with some of the nonprofits here in town, and they also go to the big conference every year, which I believe this year is in Philadelphia. So if that's kind of the way you want to go, that'd be a great thing to get involved with.
All right, did we cover everything on this one? Because we're going to go to living in Bryan College Station if we're good. Yep, okay.
Alrighty, so next up, living in Bryan College Station. We can talk about sort of any and all of these topics, plus anything that y'all want to add in. I think prospective students are usually curious if they're not from A&M about how you find housing, how you find roommates, what transportation is like, and then the sort of things that you enjoy doing here in the area. So.
I'll start with one thing. I know a lot of people, if you're coming from a metropolitan area, College Station can be kind of off-putting because it is a small college town. But one of the best things about College Station is it is right in the center of three of Texas's largest cities. Houston and Austin are about an hour and a half each away, and Dallas is about 2.5 hours. So there's lots of opportunities to go outside of the College Station area if you want more of that city life as well.
Yeah, I know that in terms of how I met my roommates, we all met at the interview conference weekend because we came to College Station in person for that. And so that was a great opportunity. We all just kind of stayed in touch. And after we all decided that we were going to Bush, we just decided to live together. There's a lot of different affordable apartment options really close to Bush. And one thing I discovered when I was here for interview conference weekend was that I really wanted a car. I was initially not planning on bringing my car since I did go to undergrad in a metropolitan city. I thought I could rely on the public transportation here. And while there is a pretty good A&M bus system that will take you to Bush and to all of the other campus buildings, it is nice to have your own vehicle, but there are a lot of international students and others who don't have a car and they're able to carpool and still make it work.
I would say in terms of local entertainment, that picture on the bottom left there is good old Northgate. Northgate's a lot of fun, so there's a lot of great things to do here in College Station. We are close to Houston and Austin, so there's concerts all the time, big events, but College Station also does its own kind of big things in terms of just nightlife and music and everything like that. So there's a lot to do here in College Station if you're not bringing your car, you know, there's things to do here right now.
I would say also for those of y'all that are coming from bigger cities, the cost of living in College Station will be a breath of fresh air. There may be a little bit of a challenge finding the right apartment fit for you and the right roommates. I will say that Bushies tend to live with each other, and so we do a lot of work to help y'all coordinate. We set up a Facebook page early in the summer. We send out a housing sort of spreadsheet, and so a lot of times first years and second years will live with each other, and when the second years graduate and move out and the first years move up, they'll be looking for new Bush students to come and fill up those bedrooms. And so a lot of people will find each other via this housing form. So people will list if they're looking for additional roommates, or sort of just list that they're looking for, a certain type of, whether it's a house or an apartment, what they would like to spend, how many people they'd like to have, if they have pets, sort of all of the details that you would need. And we do have a lot of Bushies that live with each other. I will say also, the Bush School students, I'm sure you have noticed, are extremely studious, very involved, and also love to go out in College Station and hang out with each other. I spent a lot of time playing trivia last year. So we go to downtown Bryan, eat pizza, and play trivia. There is no better team than a team of Bush School students on trivia. We also really enjoyed doing some of the sort of local concerts, the smaller concerts. So I went to Harry's a couple times, saw great performances. And so that's something that I really enjoy about being a Bush student and being around other Bush students, is they're all sort of extremely well-rounded people, and enjoy sort of the free time and enjoying Bryan College Station in addition to the really serious studies. So if y'all have any specific questions about what it's like to live here, cost of living, housing, that sort of thing, feel free to drop them in the chat and we can address things more specifically as well.
While we're waiting on that, how many of you are holding jobs? Natalie, I know you had done jobs before you even came in to be a GA working for me, but explain a little bit of how that works, because coming in on scholarship, right, you get that set amount and you were looking for jobs to help support that. Just talk a little about that transition from working those jobs and then transitioning to a GA.
Yeah, so I'm the kind of person that's always had a job, at least one, if not two or three or more. And so I came in and immediately got on a research project with one of my professors who was looking for someone to do sort of some statistical work, descriptive statistics. I also have a research position with the Federal Reserve where I support quarterly meetings. The good thing about both of those positions is I was able to work them whenever I could fit it in. And so it would be maybe for the week or for the month, I had something that I needed to deliver, but it wasn't the type of thing where I needed to clock in for a set amount of hours. And so that was really, really helpful to me. I think it's sort of an ideal situation when you're looking for a job that you can balance with schoolwork, having the flexibility to be able to work it, if you need to work at 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night, you can. If you need to sort of squeeze it in here and there between classes, I found that flexibility to be really helpful. And then this semester I'm working a GA position with admissions and recruitment. And so there's a handful of graduate assistantships that are available in the Bush School. and they're usually about a 20-hour-a-week commitment. And there's a handful of them that are non-teaching positions, so they're slightly more administrative. That's what mine is. And then the rest of them are graduate assistant researcher positions. And so you'll partner up with a professor and help them with whatever their particular research interest is. A lot of times Bush students will start to develop those relationships with professors during their first year. And so if you're interested in one of these graduate assistant researcher positions, and you have a professor who sort of is in line with the things that you care about and you're interested in, be sure to spend a lot of time at office hours, get to know them, understand what it is that they're researching, and that will sort of increase your chances of being able to be their research assistant in your second year. And then we also have students that work on main campus, students that work for the rec center, for example, and then students that work off campus as well. So I don't know if y'all have jobs, any of y'all want to jump in about that, but.
Yeah. Like I said, I went to A&M for undergrad, so I have a serving job at a local restaurant. Been working there for about 3 years, and I was able to continue working part-time, so roughly 20 to 30 hours a week still with grad school, and still have time to do things like going to the Aggie football games or going out to Northgate. So
I'm going to
Yeah,
leave this up. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like I mentioned earlier, I have a work study position with United Way, which I actually got through the Bush School, which was really awesome. And that has been a really good opportunity. And my first year, I also worked the athletic events, which was a lot of fun. They don't recommend that you work your first semester of grad school. I had 2 jobs, and I also don't recommend that you work your first semester of grad school because it was a lot. But kind of like Hayden said, grad school is like a full-time job. So I know for me, I have to work because I'm financially independent and I got bills to pay. So if you do work, it's just really important to make time and really balance your schoolwork and manage your time wisely. So that's still something I'm working on. It is possible, but it is a really important skill to have.
I'm going to build off of that and let you guys know that I do have a financial aid webinar that I will give in early November, and it'll remind you all that when you come to grad school, you usually are declared independent of your parents at that time. And so most of you are pretty destitute, not bringing in money because you're students. And so you will qualify for loans, but there are still a lot of students who come here who do have to work. And we understand that it is all about finding that work-life balance and being able to do well in school, because you are here for 2 years to succeed and go beyond your wildest dreams of making those connections so that you can get into the career of your choice. So while living in Bryan College Station, I feel is wonderful. I love the size of this town. The two together are about 180,000 when students are here. So it gives you enough variety. But if students do want to do some other aspects, they can go to Austin. You can go to, I'm heading to Dallas tomorrow to do a grad fair, but that's 3 hours away. So there are avenues of getting some of that. But in the meantime, while you're here, you're focused on school and you don't have as many distractions a lot of times as some of those larger universities in those big metropolitan areas. So we love this Bryan College Station area by and large. And those that aren't used to it, you adjust to it well enough till you can get back to what you want. But that's going to conclude this part of it. Basically, we just have this ending here. Public service is a noble calling. And these are some of the activities that our students have done over the years. The bottom left hand shows the Aggie Ring. When you're in grad school here, you do qualify for the Aggie Ring. And it is a big Texas A&M networking tradition of earning that, and then bringing your family in and getting the ring put on, and just celebrating that achievement. So really getting to know your classmates, building your family here. You'll have a lot of these connections for the rest of your life, and it's wonderful. So with that, I'm going to leave this up for a second and just let you know there are resources. Each one of those students is here. I've put whether they're MIA or MPSA, I've put their email here. If you are interested in connecting to any of these students, please just reach out to them. If you're not sure who, start with Natalie, because Natalie's my GA. That is her job to help make those connections. If maybe there's someone in here, maybe you are interested in Master of Public Service, but maybe with nonprofits. And Natalie can go through our list and put you in touch with people. So having said that, I'm going to leave this on for another 10 minutes, but I'm going to shut off the recording. And then any of you that are still on here who may have a question and want to drop it in the chat or unmute, you'll be welcome to do that. But in the meantime, I want to thank everyone for attending. I'm going to shut off the recording, and then we'll just continue this on our own little platform and kind of go.